21st of May, Rabbi Levitt, substituted by Rabbi Globus, Gemora.
Hello,
Hello, Rabbi, how are you?
good. Just the two of us today?
Yeah, I haven't heard from Roy. I don't know why he's not here. Um, there's another guy that usually comes, but he's on vacation. So, yeah, it's just us.
Right. Okay. So then let's just learn and we don't have to wait around for anybody.
Yep, I'm ready. Let's see where we are. We're on Yud Chet Amid Aleph.
Yep.
I don't think we got to the Mishnah yet. I think we're almost at the Mishnah.
No, no, we didn't get there yet. We got pretty close.
Okay, we said Ella Abaye Migufa. Abaye reversed. We did that already,
Right.
right?
We were sort of in the middle of it. We were trying to untangle that section.
Right. All right, so let's just start with that. Abaye reversed himself based on analysis of the Mishnah itself. For if you suppose we discussed in the Mishnah a locale where they do not write a ksuba, and she may collect the ksuba obligation because the get is in place of her ksuba, and not because in general one may not claim he paid an obligation of the court, because the get is in place of her ksuba. Okay, I got that. And not because in general one may not claim he paid an obligation in of the court. You may ask, is the basic ksuba obligation of 100 or 200 Jews written in a get? How does the get demonstrate that the ksuba obligation has not been paid? So, in other words, we have a problem with the get. A get is, we said the get is serving as the ketubah, but how can it? Because it doesn't specify the amount.
Right, right. But this is actually sort of a straw man kasha, as you're about to see. It says
Okay.
Vikitema.
The
This is where we're,
chitema,
yeah,
and if you will say, Kevan de sakinu rabbanan lemigba la, since the rabbis instituted that a divorcee collects her kasuba obligation, kiman dichsiv be dame, then in a place where they do not write a kasuba, it is as if the amount of the obligation is written in the get. How does that work?
so the get doesn't really say how much he's supposed to get. It just says that he divorced her, right?
Right.
So the Gemara is saying that the get in the place where they don't write a ksuba functions in place of the ksuba. And even if it doesn't say the exact amount in it, the fact that it functions as ksuba means that it's as if the amount is written in the get. Otherwise, how could it function as a ksuba? The only way it can function as a ksuba is because we look at it as if the mano or masayim is written in the gets.
But it's not written. I don't get it.
It's a takanas chachamim that the get has the same power as a star that has the amount written in it. Since Rabbanan instituted that she gets to collect her money. Come on, dichtiv badami. It's as if it's written in it. So you ask me, is it literally written in it? No, it's not literally written in it, but it's as if it's written in it.
So, no, let me ask you a different question. How much are they going to give her?
If she's a Basula Masayim, and if she was an Almana, then she gets 100.
So, in other words, they do an analysis of her status at the time of the engagement.
Yeah, she has to bring Adim, or nowadays we would bring wedding pictures, that her hair was uncovered when she went to the chuppah. And if she doesn't have Adim or wedding pictures, then we say, well, you know what? Maybe you were an almanu when you got married, and you're only getting 100, not 200. But she'll still get the 100. She's gonna get something.
Right.
He says, I owe you nothing. I paid you everything that I owe, down to the last penny. And she says, you didn't pay me anything. So the Chachamim scratch their head to say, no wedding pictures, no nothing, no ksuba. She should at least get 100. That's the minimum. So they turn to the guy, they say, you got to pay her 100.
Right. Okay. Liton v'lema parati. Let the husband nevertheless claim, I paid. V'chi tema de amrinan le. And if you will say that we tell the husband, I parati, if you paid, I boye lach the mikra'ai, you should have ripped the get up.
Right.
Amar lan lo shivaktan. He may respond to us, she did not allow me to rip the get. Amra, for she said, Be'ina le'in suve be. I need to use it as proof of my divorce status in order to remarry.
That's right. It's a very important document for personal reasons.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I remember one of my rabbis saying that he had a file of gets that he kept for his congregants. If he married a woman and she was a divorcee, he would ask her for a copy of her get, and he put it in his file to have it in case there was an issue that came up.
That was smart.
Yeah. So
I wish all rabbis kept such good records.
Right. So that's the answer to that question. So he's got a good argument.
He's got a good argument, so therefore he shouldn't have to pay her.
Right. So I didn't rip up the get because she wouldn't let me. She had a good reason.
And he's not giving up. We're going to see that there's more tainas in the Gemora.
Right.
The key tema, yeah, go ahead.
The key tema, and if you will say, Amrinan lay, that we tell him, Iboye lan alach the mikra'e, you should have ripped the get, umichtav agabe, and written on its reverse side, Gita dinan dik ra nuhu. This get we have ripped. Lo mishum digita pasula hu. Not because it is an invalid get. Ela ki hechi delo tigbe be zimna acharisi.
Mhm.
So that the woman should not reuse it again to collect her kasuba. Did you want to say something?
Okay. No, I just wanted to summarize what you just read, which is that she said, "I don't want to tear it because I need it." So the Beis Din says to him, "So why didn't you just write on the back that it's torn only because that she shouldn't be able to collect, but not because there's any pasul in the get?" You could tear it and write on the back this little note that will allow the get to still remarry her.
Right.
So why didn't you do that?
Atu kol de magbe. Does everyone who pays an obligation beve dina magbe pay in court? So, in other words, um, he may not have had the ability to do that. He wasn't in court. He,
Right.
she came to him and said, "Pay me." He said, "Okay, I'll pay you. Give me the get and I'll rip it up." And she said, "No, you can't rip it up." And he didn't have the wherewithal to know exactly what to do.
Even if you would scribble something on the back, it will be meaningless unless the Beis Din put their stamp on it. They need to put their
Ah,
stempel on it. They need to
right,
put their stempel on it. So that's what they're saying here, that he didn't have the option of scribbling a note on the back because it would be meaningless without the stempel. It has to be done in Beis Din.
right.
So therefore, this poor guy is going to be, has what are we going to do? We're going to make him pay another time. He says, "So I paid her, and I wasn't able to I wasn't able to rip the get, and I wasn't able to write anything on the back or anything. So why does he have to pay?"
But we don't believe him.
And for the reason that Rabbi Yochanan said. So this is the proof. This is the proof. Rabbi Yochanan said at the bottom of Yud Zayin Amid Aleph, Amar Rabbi Chia, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Yochanan, Atoin Achar Maisa Beis Din, Lo Amar Klu. So Abaye says, how do you know that's true? Maybe you're learning it from the Mishnah, and then they said maybe the Mishnah means something else. So then it turns out that the Mishnah could not mean something else. It has to mean this.
But that's not why.
So what? So
That doesn't
why?
tell us
Tell
what
me
his
why.
reason is. It just says what he said.
So who tells us what he said, Rabbi Yochanan or the end of the Gemora?
Well, the end of the Gemora tells us that we're stuck, but we don't know why. We don't know why we don't believe him. Why don't we say we do believe him? I mean, it's there's no particular reason to not to believe him and not believe her, or vice versa. It's her word against her word.
So what do we do? So the Mishnah says in Yud Zayin Amud Beis, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down from the top. Metzia
Zion,
get
Amid base. Let me find it. Good Zion, Amid base. How many lines in the top?
4.
Okay. He
Metzia
says
get.
you're talking about the lifting up the shard and finding the pearl?
It's one line above that.
Okay.
Has a star there, asterisk, in my book, anyways.
Okay.
Hotzia get. Ve'ein imo kesuba, gova ksuba sab. Okay, so there is such a Mishnah. There is such a Mishnah that says that when she takes out the get and she doesn't have a ksuba, we believe her. She collects her ksuba. So now, what in the world does that Mishnah mean? What's the reasoning behind that Mishnah? Comes along Rabbi Yochanan and says, I'll tell you the reasoning behind the Mishnah. It's because a toinachar ma'isa beis lo amar klum.
That's not a reason
Why not?
because why do we not believe him? Why lo Amar Klum? Why don't we say Amar Klum, Amar something? He said something.
You're asking, why did Chachamim say this rule that a toinachar ma'isa beis lo amar klum?
Right.
Why did they say that? In other words, but you're admitting to me that they said it. You're just asking why,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Why questions are harder by nature to answer.
For example, you might say, well, they want to protect the woman.
Yeah.
They're more concerned with protecting the woman than protecting the man. So even though there's equal reason to believe him and her,
Yeah.
we're gonna believe her because we want to be biased towards the woman. That would be a reason.
That would be a reason. We want to protect the woman because she's perceived as being in the weaker position.
Right.
She's the
I
one.
suspect that is the reason.
It could be. It could be, but I'll throw you out another possibility.
Okay.
The Chachamim weren't trying to protect him, and they weren't trying to protect her. They were trying to protect their own takanas. They wanted to put teeth into a Maisa Beis Din. Otherwise, people are just going to push the takanas around and find loopholes. So they put teeth into a Maisa Beis Din. They said, if you taina against a Maisa Beis Din, your taina is worthless without a proof.
So what's the Maisa based in that he's tinying against?
The Maisa Beis Din is that a divorced woman gets her ksuba money regardless of whether she shows her ksuba or not.
But that's the ruling of the Mishnah. That's what the Mishnah says.
So yes and no. Rabbi Yochanan says that if he hadn't explained to us that that was the reason of the Mishnah, we wouldn't have known that that's the reason of the Mishnah.
Right.
I'm afraid you're going to ask me, why wouldn't we have known that? What else would we have thought? How could we not
I was
know
actually
that?
thinking about asking exactly that question.
Okay. It's a good question. It's a logical question. It's not a question that I really have an answer to. There's a lot of long, complicated tosusim on the topic, and I didn't really learn them. I think that Tosfos probably thought that that was a good question. And that's why he had to answer it.
Right.
So uh, we could go over this again tomorrow. So which would give me time to prepare a little bit, or we could just go on. It's up to you.
I think we
It's
should
up
go
to you.
on. It's not that important
Okay.
a question.
Okay.
I
Okay.
understand I understand the Shaklavataria here. I understand
Okay.
the rulings. So that's just a
Good. Good.
curiosity
Okay.
as to why.
Yeah, I'm not invalidating your question. It's you're asking the right question. So, but that means that we understand the Shaklantaria.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's the nature of Gemora that there's at least as many questions as there are answers.
At least.
So because it's deep, that's the way deep subjects work. The more
Right,
you know, the more you know, the more questions you ask.
right.
So, so maybe we should just go weiter then.
Okay. Let's see. Matzah Gita Nashim. Uh, one found bills of divorce. Uh, the Sheikh Rura Avadim, or bills of emancipation. Dayatiki, or wills. Matana, or gifts, gift documents. Vishovrin, or receipts. Hare ze lo yachazir. He should not return them. She'ani omer, for I say, ke suvin hayu. Perhaps they were written v'nim lach alehen shelo litnan, but the author reconsidered and decided not to give them, and he's the one that lost them.
Right.
So he wrote these things and changed his mind, but he didn't tear them up.
So let's go through the cases. The first one is Gita Nashim, that we're pretty familiar with because we've been talking about it. So he
Right,
writes a get. So he writes a get, but not everybody who thinks about divorcing his wife actually does. Some people change their mind. They may, for
right.
whatever reason, right? So he wrote a get and then he lost it. But who says he gave it to her? So now what are we going to do? You walking down the street and you find a get. So you say, "Oh, wow, I bet this lady really needs her get. Otherwise, she won't be able to get remarried." So you go and give it to her, and you know what? She was never divorced in the first place because you never
Because
gave it
that
to her.
rotten low down, he wrote me a get. Well, fine, I'm going to divorce him.
Yeah,
You
right.
just ruined a marriage by returning it.
So it's somewhat similar with Sheikh Rurei Avadim. A guy decided he was going to emancipate his slave. Okay,
Right,
he heard about Abraham Lincoln, and it's not good to have slaves. And he decided he's going to emancipate his slave, but then he changed his mind. He started whistling Dixie again, and he just he decided he's not going to give it to the slaves, not going to emancipate them. So, but if you give it to the slave, so then he's going to be very happy. He's going to um, uh, find his way up north and be a free man.
right. So what's wrong with that?
He didn't. The master never released him.
Right.
And since we're talking about a Jewish situation here, so it's going to have a lot of nafkamis. It's not just going to be a loss of monetary loss for the master, but this slave is he's gonna want to marry a Jewish woman. I mean, he might want to. He might want to marry a Jewish woman, and he'll claim that he's eligible because he was released from slavery.
Right. He became Jewish.
Right. So he can't marry Jenny Cohen because but he can marry somebody else.
Right.
Um, um, but in fact, he's a slave and he's asked to marry a normal Jewish woman. So we don't want to give him this dangerous, potentially dangerous document, which will allow him to do things that he's not legally entitled to.
Right.
So now, TK, so we said that's a will, like an inheritance will. So that's like pretty self-explanatory. We don't want. Uh, who says he really wanted to divide up the money that way?
Right.
He
But
has
in this
a
case, so what's going to happen? The money's going to get divided up somehow.
So if there is no in will, so then we'll just do what the Torah says. Oldest son gets twice as much as everyone, all the other sons. And if there's daughters, so they get from Takanas Chachamim, they get what they're supposed to get out Takanas Chachamim. And we'll
Right.
just like divvy everything up equally.
Right. Or else if there's a previous will, that will be in effect.
Good point. Matana is the same thing. He had in mind that he was going to give something to somebody, but he didn't.
Right.
So you don't want to give that star and illegally entitle the non-recipient to that gift.
Right.
Shoverin is receipts. Shoverin is receipts. It means that you paid your debt, but maybe you didn't. Maybe you said, let's say you owe me $100, and you say, Shmuel, I'm coming over in an hour. So I say, okay, so I'm going to write a shover now. I'm going to be nice. I won't make you wait. I'll have it all written up in advance. And you never show up. So you never paid me the money, and I lost the shovar. So if that receipt is returned to you, then you won't pay me.
Right.
So in all these cases, we understand Har is a lo yachzer. He shouldn't return it because maybe it was written and never given.
Right. So the obvious question is, why don't we consider the other side of the coin, which is that in each of these cases, the document is in fact valid,
Mm-hmm.
and the rightful owner of the document is going to lose out.
That is a good point. That is a good point. So we can answer half the cases relatively easily because we're going to say that there's an Isur involved. In the Gite Nashim, we can't have a married woman remarry. In the Shichori Avadim, we can't have a slave marry a Jewish woman because there's an Isur involved. So we're going to say Isur Doraisa L'Chumra. We don't know what really happened or didn't, so we have to go L'Chumra, and because there's an Isur Doraisa involved.
Okay,
So,
that's a good point.
but that only answers half the cases. The other half are financial obligations. You have the
Right.
inheritance, you have the gift, you have the shovar, which is a receipt that a debt was paid, which are purely financial obligations. So what do we say here? Let's see. What does Rashi explain anything? First of all, let's see. Ha'amartinu. No Rashis. No Rashis.
Right.
No Tosfos. So let's think about this. Could we apply the role of Motzi Mechavero ala Varaya?
Uh-huh.
Could we apply that rule?
That's a good question. Let's see.
So
For gifts and receipts, you might say that that's applicable.
yeah,
So let's see.
at least for a gift. For a gift, it makes sense because let's say you have a shtar that says that I gave you my Ferrari. So now, so you show up and you say, "Where's the keys to your Ferrari?" I say, "Louis, you fell on your head. I didn't give you my Ferrari." You said, "It says right here that I did." So
I
then
want
you're
to
going to
take the
take
Ferrari from you. I'm trying to take it from you, so I shouldn't be able to do that.
right. But what about the Shovar? What happens with the Shovar?
But wait a second. Let's not move on yet. What about the
Okay.
other side of that coin? What if I have the Ferrari and you say, um, give it back to me? I didn't give it to you. I just lend it to you. And now I
So
have the receipt.
you have a chazaka even without the receipt. You have a chazaka on it. If it's in your driveway and you have the keys. So cars don't move by themselves.
Right.
So you have a
So,
chazaka on it. So you're probably gonna win.
right. I would win anyway.
I think you would win anyways because I would say, why give me my car back? And you say, what do you mean your car? It's my car.
So there's no
I have
point
the
in
key.
returning the receipt to me because I'm going to win anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
But what about a shovar? What's going to happen with the shovar?
So far as a
Let's
receipt, right?
a receipt. So you owe me $100 and but you have a receipt that you paid. So now let's say that receipt is not legitimate because I never gave you to because you never paid. So then what's going to happen? So what's going to happen if they didn't give you the receipt back? So I'm going to make you pay again, right? But maybe you really did pay.
Right. But you're trying to take money from me. So you should be prevented from doing that.
That's right.
So give
According
me the
to Klal.
receipt. So therefore, give me the receipt. So that doesn't work.
So it doesn't work. The Klal Motu Michavero Alav Araya doesn't work here, which may be why I think there's a Mishnah later on that says that the case is not really what it sounds like.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I'm trying to find let's see if it's really talking about, if it's referring back to this Mishnah or not. But it says, what I'm thinking of is what is on Daf Chaf, where it says in the middle of the Mishnah, Matzah Sharbein Sharvein Yodea Mativo. Okay, so that's really a different case. That's not Shaykh to our case. Okay.
I'm sorry, say it again. It's not what?
It's not connected to our case here in the Mishnah. I thought maybe it was, but now I just looked at it and I saw that it's not connected. It's not going to help us answer your question.
I see.
It's not going to help us answer the question. So now so your question goes like this. The guy found a shovar And so maybe you did pay me back. So if we don't give you the shovar, then I'm going to make you pay a second time. I'm going to be motzi mamon. I'm going to take money away from you. So why am I able to do that? Why don't we say a motzi megalav araya? Why don't we say that? So we should keep that question in mind as we learn the Gemora.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Maybe it will clarify as it discusses the cases. I assume it will discuss the cases.
So good. So that's basically where we're holding here. We learned a new Mishnah. We have a kasha on the Mishnah, and we're hoping the Gemara is going to answer our kasha.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Taima de nimlach shelo yitanan. The reason the Mishnah gives for not returning these documents is that perhaps after preparing them, the author reconsidered and decided not to give them to the person named in them. Ha amar tanu. This implies that if he would now say to give them to the persons named in them, nosnin, we would give them. Vafilu lizman meruba, even if they were found after a long time. Okay, that makes sense. Uraminahu. So compare this.
Okay, hold on just for a minute. I want to see what Rashi says about what you just read. There's a Rashi there that says Ha Amar Tzanu. Rashi says, you see that Rashi?
No. Ha. I'm looking for it. Let's see. We're on the very bottom. So it should be down here somewhere.
It's actually like about 2/3 the way down. First word on the line is, okay, good.
Achshav. Right now.
Yeah, which is the way that the English explained it. I wanted to see that point. I wanted to see if it was according to Rashi or what.
Right.
So because we could have interpreted the Gemara that he had previously said give it. So Rashi is telling us no, that's not what the Gemara means. He means now, after it was found. It's not like we now that it was found and they're not sure whether to give it or not to the person who wants it. So he says, yeah, give it to him. It's okay with me.
Oh, so in other words, the finder goes to the author and says, I found this. What should I do with it?
Yeah. Yeah. He says, look, I understand that this is sensitive. If I give it to the person who claims he lost it, so then that's going to put you in a tough spot, maybe. Is it okay if I give it?
Right.
So he gives his consent. He says, yes, you can return to to the claimant, the person who claims he lost it. So we would give it. So that's the next Rashi, nosnin.
Okay, I think we should continue until we run out of time. We're going to run out of time. It's just going to cut us off. So let's just continue until as far as we can.
Good. Fine.
Okay, so nosnin, give it. Afilu nimtza lizamein meruba, even if it was found a long time ago, mishnafal velo chayshinan, it fell, it was lost and it was not in use.
It was found a long time after it fell. Filu
Right,
nimsas ma meruba misha nafa. So it fell in January, and somebody found it in July.
right.